All right, good morning, everybody. Happy race day. Let's talk about the Xfinity Series at Las Vegas. If you played the Truck Series race, hopefully you didn't have Dean Thompson or Matt Mills. I had way too much of both of them, and things were looking so good until stage three, where they both had issues, and that more or less kind of ruined my night. So I'm going to turn the page and hopefully going to try to attack this Xfinity slate have a little bit more luck. So, as always, just thank you guys for tuning in, watching, commenting, sharing, retweeting, helping grow the channel. We're almost at 800, YouTube subs, which is great. We're getting more and more followers on X, and I really do appreciate the tips that you guys have been sending. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So when we get to Las Vegas, for this Xfinity race, what do we have to keep in mind? Well, the first thing is there's no more pack racing. There's no more Daytona. There's no more Atlanta. This is, real NASCAR. This is intermediate, oval racing. So when we get to these types of tracks, there's different things that we can lean on. It's not as, randomized, fast laps led aren't as, distributed as much throughout the field. There's different things that we kind of have to hone in on. So the first thing that you're going to hear a lot of people talk about is you have to nail the lap leader. When you get these intermediate tracks, usually a driver or two are going to get out front and they're going to lead, a good chunk of that stage or potentially all of the stages or maybe most of the race. We saw with the truck race, there were some different comers and goers. That was a pretty good race. But for this Xfinity race, you really want to make sure you get those lap leaders in your lines. And if you aren't getting the lap leaders, some other plays, you want to build around, and these are usually plays who also have the ability to lead laps, are people that can give you fast laps. Well, why are we trying to target those plays? Well, there's a lot of points up for grabs if you can get these types of drivers into your lines. So if you get drivers that earn fast laps, we have 90 points up for grabs, of fast laps that are available throughout this race. We want to try to get those drivers into our lines that are going to hog, get those points. Same with laps led. Now, place differential is still important, but it's not as much of a focus as it was at Daytona and Atlanta. So what are we really looking at? How do we determine who those lap leaders are? How do we determine, what players we want to get to our lines? Well, it's a little interesting. It's a brand new year. So this race will give us a lot of data for the rest of 2024. But specifically, we want to look at previous 1.5 data at the Xfinity series. How did these teams do? How did these drivers do? We also want to just look at practice. How did they run in practice? What were their lap averages? Where did they qualify? And that'll kind of help us determine where we want to go. So when you get to the slate here, it's somewhat interesting. We got the top range: John Hunter, Nemechek, Allgaier, Custer, Smith, and Hill. Now, the outlier here is going to be Allgaier. Now, Allgaier, if you aren't aware, nearly wrecked his car in qualifying. He had a tire go down and somehow was able to save it. Luckily enough for him, he did save it. But because of that, he basically, forfeited his qualifying run. So he's going to start from the rear of the field. Now, the upside that Allgaier has is his car is extremely quick. He was one of the fastest cars in practice. Most likely was going to qualify up towards the front of the field. So not only does he give you a ton of place differential upside, he also gives you fast lap, upside, and even lap leading upside as well. Like, it might take him a decent amount of time to get through the field, but he has the car to do it and he has the talent to do it as well. So he's going to be extremely high owned. He's going to be, very high owned in cash games, very high owned in tournaments, but for good reason. His ceiling is through the roof. A driver that could potentially get overlooked because of that is going to be John Hunter Nemechek. For me, it's actually tough to get John Hunter Nemechek into most of my builds just because I want to go to Allgaier and then I want to go to a lap leader. And I do think John Hunter Nemechek has lap leading upside, but I would much rather play Custer, Smith, or Hill, in my opinion, just because they start further towards the front of the field, and they also were faster in practice and qualifying. So their chances, in my mind, of getting you fast laps and laps led are much higher than John Hunter Nemechek's. And he's the most expensive on the slate. I still think he's going to run well. I think that's going to keep his ownership down. So I still want to get him in a couple of different lines for tournaments for that reason. Now, when we talk about lap leaders, I think most people are going to lean on Cole Custer, and for good reason. He starts on the pole. He was very fast in practice, and he's almost, if not the quickest, across the 5 lap average, the 10 lap average, the 15 lap average, and the 20 lap average. So he's fast. He backed it up in qualifying. He's going to have the clean air. He'll be able to control the restart. Now, he does have some good cars behind him. Chandler Smith is always very good at this Las Vegas track. While I do prefer Cole Custer as my early lap leader, and I'm going to have more ownership to Custer, I think a lot of the public's going to be playing that way too. So if you're trying to find ways, well, how can I get different? How can I get some leverage on the field? I still think Smith is going to have ownership, but I think his ownership is going to be less than Custer. So if you're looking for a pivot option, maybe Chandler Smith can be your early lap leader there. Another driver I like a lot as a, contrarian type of, lap leaders could be Austin Hill. We know how good Austin Hill is. He's won both of the first 2 opening races of the year. But let's keep in mind, this is a different style of track. And because of him winning at Daytona, Atlanta, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a little bit of an ownership bump. Um, However, I still think his ownership's going to come in less than Allgaier and Custer. So he was pretty fast. He was kind of around 4th to 5th across most of the different practice metrics and the different lap averages. And he qualified right around there too, which reiterates that. But he's kind of right in striking distance. So if there's an issue or if he's able to get out front, he most likely has the car to maintain that position. So he's close. And I like the upside that he offers, but definitely more of a GPP option. AJ Allmendinger, I'm just not getting to. I don't really know what to do with AJ. I mean, the concern with AJ is how slow his teammates were. I mean, it's a night and day difference how much quicker AJ is compared to his teammates. Now, yes, the talent level, at least for intermediate tracks, is significant compared to his teammates. I think I said Austin Hill is the contrarian lap leader. I think AJ Allmendinger is really the contrarian lap leader. I don't think really anyone's could play AJ Allmendinger, but he's good. I mean, the concern is just I don't really know what to do with this colleague equipment. And for me, I would rather lean on Custer, Smith, and Hill as my lap leaders instead of Allmendinger. I really like Riley Herbst. I think Herbst is actually a similar play to John Hunter Nemechek. He just gives you a lot of price discounts and a lot of savings. So they start right next to each other. They were arguably pretty close to each other in practice. But I like the place differential upside that Herbst gives you. And we've seen Herbst improve a lot over the years. And he's been able to show, he's been able to mimic and run a lot closer to what Cole Custer has been running, especially towards the end of last year and even so far this year. I mean, the speed is definitely there. Now, Eric Almirola, I was a little high on coming into the week just because I was like, hey, it's a cup level driver in top level JGR equipment. He signed up for this because he wants to win. Like it was fun for him when he won that what was it, Sonoma race or whatever? Yeah, whatever that road course race was, and worse equipment than he's in now. So he wants to come do this because he wants the chance to run up front. And I was actually a little shocked that he practiced and qualified where he did. Now, most of the Toyotas kind of showed, the JGR cars, except for Chandler Smith, really, but most of them kind of showed around that speed, kind of outside the top 10. So, maybe we see something similar that we saw in the truck race where once they wave the green flag, the track conditions, might change and that car might come, to him and we might see him drive forward. But I have him as medium. I have him in some lines, but I'm really not getting there a ton. I'm not really getting the Sheldon Creed and Sammy Smith either. They just didn't really, Creed didn't, they're for 2 different reasons. A, Creed didn't run a lot of laps in practice. And the laps that he did run shows that he's around where he qualifies. So my fear is he gets stuck around there. And then on the other hand, Sammy Smith did run a lot of laps in practice, which is encouraging. He should know what kind of car he has, what adjustments that team needs to make. But those laps are relatively slow, compared to the rest of the field, especially compared to where he qualified. So the qualifying effort, is encouraging. Maybe they improved on some stuff. Maybe they found some stuff, to work on. But looking at those practice times, I'm just a little concerned with him starting 8th. I'd much rather go down to the 8K range and play some of these plays. So you got Sam Mayer, Jesse Love, and Brandon Jones. I'm going to throw a blanket over all 3 of them. I think all of them are basically the same play. Now, the nice thing about Jones is he gives you a price discount off of Sam Mayer and Jesse Love, and I think he's going to be the lowest owned of the three. I like all of them for tournament options. I still have to build my lines, but most of my lines will probably have, some one of them in there, just depending on lineup construction and stuff. Parker Kligerman is a interesting GPP option. He definitely carries some risk starting seventh, but the encouraging thing is he showed a lot of speed in practice and qualifying, even on the different lap averages. I mean, his 5, 10, 15 lap averages suggest that he's around a 6th to 8th place car, and that's where he qualified. So if he can maintain that running position, maybe get you some fast laps for $8,500 for a driver that's, should run inside the top 8 for most of the day, like, I don't mind that. But, if he has an issue or even drops back and finishes like 15th, 16th, like, that's when you're really going to start to get in trouble. So his upside is definitely limited, but it's doable. Now, SVG Shane Van Gisbergen. I have no idea what to do with him. I mean, it's kind of a wild card. I am probably going to stay away from him, and I'm not really going to play him. This is a quote unquote a real oval race. So we're not pack racing anymore. I'm really curious to see how he performs, but he was very slow, relatively speaking, in practice. His speed compared to AJ Allmendinger's is night and day. Now, SVG speed was a little bit quicker than Josh Williams, who's in the same equipment, but this is more or less a learning, season for him. He's just out there to clock laps and learn, how to race on these styles of tracks. We already talked about Jones there. Corey Heim is interesting. He's not in the best equipment, but we know how good Heim is. We saw him, run extremely well in the truck race. He likes this track. He showed that he can log laps and maintain, a pace to move forward even a handful of spots from where he starts. The concern with Corey Heim is the equipment that he's in. Will him and that team be able to maintain that pace for the entire, length of this race, the entire duration of this race? I wish he started a little bit further back, but I don't mind him for $7,800. He's definitely a tournament play. I'll definitely have some ownership there. Not getting the Retzlaff, great qualifying run, but he just starts too far forward for me. Josh Williams has had probably one of the worst opening starts of the season that I can remember in quite some time. And the concern this week is he's slow again. He starts qualified 32nd on speed. That's not good for a colleague car. I think he's going to draw a lot of ownership because of this, because of his place differential upside and the equipment that he's in and the price, but just the speed that he showed, I more or less am concerned. I think it's a trap play. I just don't want to go there. Jeb Burton didn't run enough laps in practice to get a 5-lap average, so that's concerning to me. I have no idea what type of car he has. Now, he did qualify 21st, but these Jordan Anderson cars are just unreliable. They're unpredictable. They're hard to trust. Anthony Alfredo, I'm high on, and I'm high on him basically just because of where he starts. Now, he did wreck out in practice. He did not take a qualifying time, and the team has confirmed they are going to a backup car. Are these cars great to start with? No. And a backup car is going to be worse than the primary car. Now, when we look at practice, he was around, 19th to 22nd or so, which is encouraging. I don't think his backup car will have quite the same pace, and that backup car won't have any laps on it either. But he starts so deep in the field that, he should be able to move forward. I trust Anthony Alfredo and this team and the equipment that he's in to outpace, a lot of these back marker cars. So I don't think he's going to have a great day, but he can't really lose you any points. And, if he can get a 25th place finish, that's more than okay with me. I'm not getting the Ryan Sieg, same reason I'm not getting the Red Slab, just starts too high. Clements is kind of in the same boat as Jeff Burton, just didn't run enough laps in practice. That's concerning to me. They showed decent speed in qualifying, but I have a hard time envisioning both of those drivers moving forward from those spots. Kyle Weatherman, I don't mind. He's a little bit more of a risky play, but we've seen he has the ability and the skill to run inside the top 20. I think he should be relatively, lower owned. And his times, like I said, were pretty decent in practice, and he backed it up in qualifying. The concern with Weatherman is, kind of the same concern that we have with Heim. Can they maintain this pace throughout the entirety of the race? I think they're going to run well in stage one, maybe run well in stage two. But once we start getting halfway through stage two and we get in that long stage three run, that's when I start to get concerned about the Heims and in the Weathermans of the field. JJ Ailey, great qualifying run, but this team was very slow in practice. Barely, didn't run enough laps. I'm concerned there. I probably have too much Haley Deegan than I should, but Haley always finds ways to get into issues. I know I'm going to be kicking myself when that inevitably happens during this race. However, she's priced low. She starts deep, and her times were decent. Like I think a top 20 finish is doable. Do I think it's likely? But when I start looking at some of the other value on the slate here, it's kind of ugly. There's not a lot of plays that I really like. Sage Karam, this is the Jordan Anderson car that is significantly off the pace. He qualified here, so he's slow. I'm not going to pay that much. Brennan Poole, a little bit more risky, great qualifying run, but he starts likely around where his ceiling is. So I don't mind him for tournaments. I mean, it's a decent equipment, but again, once we get to stage two, stage three, that's when these teams and these equipments, that's when those issues start to pop up. And if he has an issue and starts 18th and finishes 25th, 26th, it's not going to be good for your DFS line. Now, Kyle Sieg, I think, is in the same boat as Haley Deegan. He gives you a little bit of a price discount off of Haley. I think their upside is similar, but I think Haley's upside is higher than Kyle Sieg's. Would probably play Sieg or Deegan over Sieg, but I have ownership to both. Not really getting to Nick or Smithley. I think there's just other plays I'd rather play, and they're relatively slow. Joey Gase, I don't really like, but he starts DFL. He's very slow. However, he just needs to finish the race. If he can finish the race, he's going to earn you positive points. Now, it might not be a ton of positive points, but depending on your lineup construction, you're going to need some of these value plays. And for me, I don't mind Joey Gase just clocking laps for you and being a pure attrition play. Ryan Ellis is a little bit more of a tournament play. Now, his finishing potential is a lot higher than most of the other plays around here. The concern is he carries more risk, starting 23rd. So again, if he starts 23rd and he finishes 30th, 31st, not going to be a great day. But if he starts 23rd and finishes 20th or 18th or something like that, we'll take that over a driver that starts 30th and finishes 26th. Like, the upside is there, but the risk is definitely there as well. I'm not really getting to Patrick Emmerling. Didn't run a lot of laps in practice. Those laps were slow. Leland Honeyman, I think, is similar to Ryan Ellis with finishing potential, but Ellis is a little bit more of a safety net with his place differential starting position there. Perkins was slow. I'm just not getting to him. And then the lowest I would go on the slate today is probably Dawson Cram if you need savings. I don't mind him. I wish he started a little bit further back, but this team showed decent pace, decent speed. I think getting it finished inside the top 25 is very doable for Dawson Cram. And then I'm not getting to McLeod or CJ McLaughlin today. So yeah, there's not really a lot of drivers I'm really high on. There's a lot of drivers I don't want to play. There's a lot of ugly plays. Some of these ugly plays are probably going to work out. It's just the way it's going to be. So that's going to do it for the Xfinity Series race. Best of luck today. At some point, most likely tonight, depending on how the day goes, I'll have, the Cup video and then I'll get the sheet posted out in the morning as well. But thank you guys. As always, have a good Saturday. Enjoy the race. And yeah, good luck.